Welcome, Climate Viewers. It's Jim Lee here with Mark from Florida Sky Watchers. We're doing something a little different today, trying out some different software. So you're my guinea pig, Mark. Welcome to the program. For those who aren't familiar with Mark, I want to share a couple things with you real quick. Mark is the owner and founder of Florida Sky Watchers on Facebook. Links are should be in the details, and if they're not, I will rectify that after the program. And you know what? I'll just shoot that out to all of you right now in the chat. Boom. And you can find him over here on X at FL Sky Watchers, not with question mark. You got to get rid of, you guys got to know about this, these FBCLID, Facebook click IDs. Just grab the question mark and all of this tracking code, delete it, hit enter, and then you can share with your friends without Facebook tracking every damn thing you're doing. And I'll give you that in chat. And he should be possibly, maybe testifying at the Florida Senate Bill 56 geoengineering and weather modification activities in the near future. So with that being said, if you guys are new to the channel, if you haven't ever been here before, please go over here to connect.climateviewer.com. That's where you can find all of my social media. Subscribe to the SUBSTACK newsletter, join our Telegram chat, all the fun things. And it looks like we've got everything working. It's a miracle. All right, I'm gonna stop the screen share. Welcome, Mark. How you doing, brother?
Good. Yeah, no one knows how much time we just spent behind the scenes getting this queued up.
I will
My
clock it
prehistoric
at
webcam and
1 hour and 21 minutes. At a minimum, 1 hour and 21 minutes. But it's all worth it in the end if it works. So we'll see how that works. Yeah, we call it fake book too, but hey, if it's working, it works. You got to take advantage of it. So how'd you get into this, Mark? Like, how long have you been doing it? Tell everybody a little bit about yourself.
yeah, no worries. So yeah, I guess I became an anti-geoengineering activist back in 2010. I was contacted by a friend of mine who um, had a direct line of contact with Michael Murphy. At the time, Michael Murphy was shooting the documentary film called "What in the World Are They Spraying?" And so I was put into contact with Michael Murphy because he was in Orlando, Florida, um, in attendance at an aerosol convention. And so basically, we both got mic'd up with, hidden cameras and everything else. And then we pretty much infiltrated this convention. And I had just met him at the time, but I had already been pretty aware of geoengineering and weather modification and everything else for several years. But then this basically really kickstarted my activism. And from that point forward, I have some very candid interviews with Michael Murphy that I've never aired, but he was definitely ahead of his time. Obviously he went on to go completely crazy and then sort of disappeared. But I started Florida Sky Watchers back in 2015, and it's actually a pretty interesting story because I had been posting in a group called Chemtrails Global Skywatch. And it wasn't actually me who started Florida Sky Watchers. It was
So
somebody.
you were hanging out with Russ Tanner.
Yeah. So it wasn't even me who started Florida Sky Watchers, but basically I was just sharing, NASA worldview satellite imagery, and then somebody else had started Florida Sky Watchers maybe about 4 or 5 months prior. And then they reached out to me directly and said, "Hey, look, I would like to make you an admin of the page. You know a lot more about this than than I do." And then so that's how I basically became the admin of Florida Sky Watchers. And then that individual he was on Facebook under like an alias, and then once Facebook really started its, um, really kind of monitoring people's identity and everything else, he pretty much dropped off, and then
Yeah.
my contact with him pretty much disappeared altogether right around the pandemic. And I don't know exactly what happened to the guy, but I had basically been the sole admin of Florida Skywatchers since about 2018 or so. And but I think that almost all the posts on Florida Skywatchers from 2016 forward is pretty much has been entirely me. And then anyway, yeah, so I've just gotten more into it, studying a lot more over the years, doing a lot of research. Went to University of Florida, obviously grew up in Florida as well, and then the Florida Skywatchers started going viral back in October of 2023, pretty much right around the same time that weather modification started going viral and becoming trendy as well, when people started becoming a lot more conscious of what was happening. And then pretty much the rest is history after that. The Facebook account became monetized a couple of months ago, and then I've just been focused on it probably about 40 or 50 hours a week ever since that time, even though I'd been talking about doing it, full time since 2021. I just didn't really know how I was ever going to, be able to do it for a living and make any money doing it, to, at the very least, just pay my bills. But on a side note, my background's in agriculture, and I have a business here in Orlando, Florida, which I don't ever really promote or anything like that. But that has basically supported and sustained my activism over the years. And as me and you were talking yesterday, we both have some connections, long history of activism. Mine pretty much really started back in 2008. I was in Zuccotti Park during Occupy Wall Street.
That's right.
I was a pretty big player in Occupy Wall Street in Orlando as well. But yeah, my activism goes way back to about 2008 or so. And a lot of that stuff I'm going to keep on the wraps. Not sure how much I
I
want.
understand what you mean. I don't really go into my anonymous days and the things like that. I've mentioned a couple things here or there, and the people who know, they know, and we just leave it at that. No need to go digging up the FBI um, over things that we did many years ago. But with that, you just gotta go. I mean, they knew about it then, right? I mean, let's be real. Like everything you did then, everything I did then, they knew then. They didn't do anything then, so it's really like, what does it even matter? You know what I
If the
mean? That's
government wants to, Julian Assange is a perfect example of what the government's capable of doing to somebody. If they want to silence them, they will literally chase you to the end of to the earth to silence you. Julian Assange is a great example. That other Rolling Stone journalist was another great example where they may have taken control of his car. I,
yeah,
I can't
yeah.
remember his name,
I
but
know. I know who you're talking about. I was thinking Glenn Greenwald at first because the feds actually targeted Glenn Greenwald for even covering WikiLeaks. So you had our federal government actually targeting a private citizen journalist, and you would think that something like that would never occur, but unfortunately it does. That's just the reality of the things. And then you go do some dumb stuff, like I've done in the past, like when you go and you map out the Five Eyes spy surveillance network, and you got all the NSA facilities around the world, like the Utah data center where basically all of Hillary Clinton's deleted emails are at. That earned me a visit by the NSA on my beach vacation, no less. So good times there. I really appreciate it when they came by. Um, you never know what's going to get you in trouble. But yeah, going and mapping out all the spy facilities around the planet earned me a direct visit from the NSA. And I was like, they're like, are you going to take it down? I was like, why the hell would I take it down? Um, you stop spying on me and I'll take it down, but you're not gonna. So have a nice day. You know, at the end of the day, they can kiss it. Michael Hastings, is that it?
Oh yes, there it is. Got it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Greenwald
so
as a
he had Michael Hastings. Basically, that was during the Obama administration. He was calling for all journalists to unite to basically form like a union and start pushing back against the executive branch, specifically the Obama administration, because they were waging a war against journalists. And I mean, they ended that guy's life. He had actually reached out to all of his inner circle just hours before that car exploded, and then there's eyewitnesses that were there. The car was going 130 miles an hour down the road, and I would say that someone took remote control of that vehicle that night. Um,
For those who don't believe that that's possible, just go to YouTube, type in DEF CON convention. Okay, the DEF CON convention, and then type in Cadillac OnStar lockup brakes. And basically, before we had Elon Musk's Starlink, we had OnStar. And you could press a button, and then just magically somebody would appear in your car and be like, "Hi, how can I help you?" Well, I'm broken down on the side of the road, and I paid for this crap. So how about send somebody to help me?
I pressed the
Um,
wrong button.
yeah, and basically, the hackers were able to use OnStar to then get into the systems because it has things like they could remotely unlock your keys, unlock the vehicle and things like that. Well, they were able to circumnavigate the system, actually lock up the brakes on a Cadillac through OnStar. So if you want to crash somebody who has OnStar in their car, you certainly can. Um, creepy, creepy, creepy.
Yeah.
Clearwater, Florida in the house. What's up, short bus?
So what else were we talking about yesterday? Oh yeah,
So,
weather modification history. Michael
yeah,
Murphy. Oh yeah, the whole Dane Wigington thing.
what's
Patrick,
your take on him?
why don't you play that clip from the EPA now? I had no
Uh,
idea
we'll,
that you were
we'll,
the
we'll
one
save
that
we'll
had
save it for a minute.
spearheaded that.
Yeah, we'll save that for a minute. What's your general take on many of the people in the anti geoengineering movement? I mean, like, who do you like? Who do you distrust? I mean, because I'm going to tell you what, I get called agent more than anything in the world, like anything, like all the freaking time. Like right now, I've got a hater on Substack writing, all kinds of shit about me. Have you experienced that? I mean, how many times have you been called a shill? Let's start there.
I don't know if I've made it to that level yet, where people are trying to, destroy my character or my persona anyway. I had remained pretty much anonymous on Florida Skywatchers for a long time. Um, and as far as the history goes, I pretty much have studied this with blinders on.
Yeah. Yeah,
Really,
that's me too.
I really
Focus
have,
in.
yeah, I had really gotten, I don't know, I guess my education on all this really came from Rosalind Peterson
Same.
and Agricultural Defense Coalition. And I pretty much did a deep dive with that, where I pretty much read everything on her website. It led me to the weather modification book that was put out in 1976 by the University of Florida. I think it's called Weather Modification Policy Problems and Potential. Uh,
Yeah. 788 pages for those who don't know.
yeah, so I mean, I did a deep dive with that, read that book cover to cover, and then that led me into Project Cirrus, Project Storm Fury, And then beyond that, all of the papers that came out that were released by the United States Air Force up until like 1982, before everything pretty much went dark. It seemed like everything was, public knowledge right up until the late 1970s when they started engineering these storms, and then they started resulting in tragic events like the Black Hills flood, and there was a blizzard up in New York State, and just really really bad storms that had resulted from these weather modification experiments. There it is. So that book is for anybody that wants to really get into weather modification and weather modification history. That is where you start. That was ordered by the Senate, I believe, and that was basically a compilation of all of the research that had been done and all of the work that had been done on weather modification from pretty much the beginning of documented time up until the end of the Florida area cumulus project. Um,
And you can actually, this is on weather modification history. So you actually have, like right here, you can just go to this and you can actually read the book online. It's right here on archive.org and you
nice.
can flip through it. So, I mean, you can either download it, you can buy it if you want to. 784 pages. Damn, I was close. um, but yeah, all 784 pages. And for those who aren't familiar with this document specifically, um, why is it still doing it? All right, there. Um, this was kind of a result of Operation Popeye. So Seymour Hersh published, in the New York Times what Jack Anderson had let loose in the Pentagon Papers about weather warfare in Vietnam. As a result, there were three separate Senate hearings, subcommittee hearings on the weather warfare that happened in Vietnam. As a result of that, you had a whole bunch of old, bald, white dudes going, wait, we can control the weather? And they were so confused by this that they said, well, we need to pass some laws immediately because we didn't even know this was going on. And for that matter, we need to get a list of everything the federal government's been involved in. So, first, they passed the Weather Modification Reporting Act of 1972. That's what requires anybody in America. If you're going to do any kind of weather modification activities, you got to fill out a NOAA Form 17 dash 4. And you have to submit that to the Department of Commerce and NOAA so they have it on record. They don't tell you you can or you can't do it. You just have to notify them. 1976, they did the Weather Modification Policy Act. And then finally, in 1978, the final report came out, and this report was ordered by Congress to basically be a full accounting of everything that either had federal investment, federal interaction, or even down to the state level, all the weather modification that had happened up to this point, because they were trying to now go, how the hell did we get to a place where we're doing weather warfare? We're signing a UN treaty, the NMOD treaty, the Environmental Modification Convention. They wanted to know, why are we banning weather warfare? And we didn't even know that people were doing weather modification. So for those that haven't read this, it's really like a shock and awe of everything from basically like 1905 to 1976. And then it was finally published in 1978. So that's a good start. For people who, aren't familiar with it and you like to read. A lot of people don't like to read. And I don't know if you would agree with me on this, but I've read the entire thing. I have a photographic memory. If somebody wants to test me in chat, go over there, pick a page, and I will tell you what's on that son of a bitch. Dare you? Come at me, chat. I'll do it. I'll do it. But anyway, so the point being that you know, this was like the groundwork for where we are today. And past this point, we have 800 newspapers on weathermodificationhistory.com. This pretty much marked the end of like transparency also in the
Yep.
government.
Sure did.
It's the last time that the government did a full accounting of what the hell is going on. And not only that, but all of the newspapers precipitously dropped off and even discussing the topic. And you have this lull till, like, when I started, first publishing maps on weather modification and things like, ionospheric heaters. And that was right around like 2005, I think. Yeah, like 2005. When I was publishing those maps, people were telling me this isn't real on the Google Earth forum. They took my Google Earth file and moved it out of the science section and put it in the other sentient side, aka the tinfoil hat section. And I'm going, but I got these from government reports from NOAA. I mean, it literally has the reference for it. So it's kind of weird how we went from a full disclosure in 1978 to, complete like radio silence, to now it's mainstream again. In fact, we've got all the COVID kids who've run out of breath talking about COVID. Now they're coming for my chemtrails and they're talking about geoengineering, but they haven't done their homework. So I think that it's kind of like, and we were discussing this on the phone yesterday. You said something about the people who were talking at the Florida hearing, and I've seen this in multiple other hearings where you get people who are like, they're really filled with a lot of piss and fire, and they're ready to go out and do something about this, but they really haven't studied it at all. And then whenever they're asked questions by legislators, they really don't have any answers. I mean, what do you think about that?
Yeah, well, so I went ahead and obviously I went back and watched the initial hearing when the bill was introduced to the committee. And for anybody who does not know, or people that are still questioning this, so Florida has a bill, Senate Bill 56, which has gone through the first part of the process for getting approved. And so the initial committee hearing, which was on February 11th, it was introduced by Senator Ileana Garcia, and then there was a panel of individuals that testified. And so what I saw, and honestly, I was kind of frustrated that nobody had reached out to me prior to this hearing, only because I've been operating Florida Skywatchers for so long, and I know that anybody that discusses this subject, especially in the state of Florida, definitely has seen my page at this point. The average reach of Florida Skywatchers every month is between 5 and 10 million. Um, and I've been pulling those numbers now since like 20 since the beginning of 2024. So I thought that someone for certain would be reaching out to me in regards to testifying. What was really upsetting to see was that when they were confronted, and I have an outline of this because I actually went through, watched it again, wrote an outline, and actually answered the questions that were presented to the senator and the other individuals that were involved. But basically, even the most basic questions like what type of chemicals are being used in cloud seeding and geoengineering, and she couldn't answer the question. And no, not to cast shade or insult or anything like that. Those are basic questions that should have been listed and ready to go on a form. Obviously the most basic silver iodide and other chemical compounds that have been used, but all of that stuff is easily accessible on NOAA's website. Even the applications that have been submitted will show you the chemical compounds that they plan to use or that they have used. And so you can put together a pretty basic list. Those questions were not answered. Another question that was presented was who are the individuals that are involved behind this? And that's another basic question. The United States government, the United States
Let's
Air
pause.
Force.
Let's pause right there for a second because I think you're making an excellent point with that, and let's just share this with people. So for those who aren't familiar, Um, when you're talking about the weather modification, I'll throw this in chat for everybody. For those who are new to this, maybe you've never actually seen these reports. But you can scroll down and you can see U.S. government weather modification report project reports, and these are the forms that they actually use. So like this is
Yeah,
the
perfect.
actual
This is great.
fillable form right here that they have to fill out. And let me hit back on that. And then you do an initial, and then you do an interim, and let me close some of these tabs. Then you do what's called an interim activity and final report. And on this, you literally have to list all this information here. So what the final product actually looks like, and I have, a lot of these, they're just like overview files where you could just basically see who did it, where they did it, and all of that. So it'll say, project, state, agent. This is silver iodide, CO2, other operators who did the weather modification, sponsors who paid for it, purpose, precipitation enhancement, snowpack augmentation. Sometimes you'll see like hail mitigation, fog mitigation, and then initial report file. This is Rosalind Peterson's work right here, which I converted into all of these files and then I mapped. But now you can actually just go to and I have an entire Excel spreadsheet right here. So if you want the entire history from 2004 to 2012, or you can just click right here on NOAA Central Library and you can go to that. And I think I updated this. Yes, I did. This should be the one that actually works. When you scroll down to the bottom, you can actually see all of the weather modification reports.
Yeah,
Um,
by region. Should be able to
yeah,
do it by region.
Yeah, so you can sort, there's a bunch of different ways. Sort project designation, search number, date range, search by
Yeah,
activity.
just click on any one of those so that people
Yeah.
can see how you can actually identify what
So
chemical
like
compounds.
whenever you go to this is actually showing you like where the cloud seeding generators are. Um, and I use these as a basis to go then map out the cloud seeding generators, um, on Google Earth. And this is just a quick update file, obviously. Let me go back real quick. Because see, it says right here U-M, and then this is the other file. And this one's actually filled out. So you can see this is Western Unitas, Utah. And then down here, it'll say November. There were 11 days that they modified. And then December, 9 days for a
And
total
then,
of
yeah, there
20
you
days.
go. There's
All
all
in,
the chemical compounds in the
yeah.
right.
And you can see that it's all ground-based cloud seeding generators, which I just showed you in this. These are there's no planes involved in this one. So these are all ground-based cloud seeding generators. And, they say we use 6,338 grams of silver iodide for a total of 11,039 grams of
I'm
silver
sure that
iodide.
NOAA is there on the ground monitoring all of this
No,
too every
no,
single day.
there's no transparency whatsoever. I,
That was just a joke.
I know. High five for pointing that out. And that's
Yeah,
exactly
yeah.
what I was going to say. So if you actually, ironically, if you look at the Weather Modification Reporting Act, which brought this about back in, I think it was the 80s, they removed the requirement to report daily, like what your activities were. So they actually weakened the law. And now we need to get to a point where we go back, I mean, let's be real. If the federal government can write an app that illegal immigrants can download an app from our federal government, take a picture of themselves, say, I'd like to meet with a border patrol agent so that they can get me into the country, and then schedule a damn flight like they were doing under the Biden administration. I'm pretty freaking sure we can make a weather modification reporting app that in real time, when the pilot's in the freaking air, I am now seating. I have stopped seeding. Here are the conditions, and they can
Well,
all of that data should be tracked. This is
I
my
want to
personal opinion.
I want to rewind a little bit though. I want to just back up a little bit. So, and I'm sure that you collaborate, or I'm sure that you'll agree with a lot of this. So in Florida, Florida had always really been ground zero for weather modification, and this is another big reason why I'd been so active with this. If you look back at Project Storm Fury and all of these, um,
Operation Cumulus, Project
yeah, all
Cirrus.
these operations that were happening in Florida, these things were going on for decades before this information ever actually got conveyed and revealed to the public. So, for example, like the Florida area cumulus experiment, that went on. There was two phases that spanned like 20 years, and they didn't actually release the results of that project until like the early 1980s. At that point, the project had already been done for like 6 or 8 years. So these things were going on for a very long time. um, Even the original experiment projects, Project Cirrus, and the original weather modification experiment on that Hurricane King. That was the collaboration between GE and the United States Air Force. That experiment went horribly wrong. That storm ended up reversing and coming back and striking Savannah, Georgia, and killing like a couple dozen people. And
This
then
is this is the original report on Project Cirrus
yeah, it's
from
awesome.
1952. I
Another great example.
Dominic purchased this for me. This is the original book from GE for $300 off of eBay.
Yeah, so
And
I had gone back and read that because you go on to like Wikipedia and you read about Project Cirrus, and it's just a bullshit summary. You
yeah,
actually can pull up the original government report, but interestingly, what happened was there was a scientist within GE, Langmuir, that was involved with this weather modification project,
that's
and
right.
this guy came public and said, "Look, I'm 99% certain that our cloud seeding into this storm caused this storm to reverse. Otherwise, it was complete denial. You can go onto Wikipedia today. You'll see that they'll even still deny it, even though you had the scientist that was involved in this project that came forward and said it was our
They
fault."
literally told Langmeyer, Irving Langmeyer, they told him, do not claim this in public because, because liability. It's very much like the same story of Charles Mallory Hatfield when he made rain for San Diego. They offered him $10,000 to make it rain. This is in 1916. But whenever he made it rain and then it flooded and it literally broke a dam, the Lake Morena Dam, and did like $2+ million worth of damages, the city couldn't pay Hatfield the $10,000. He's like, I made it rain. And because if they paid him the money, they'd be admitting liability. The same is
Exactly.
true with Project Cirrus. They don't want anybody to know that Project Cirrus had anything to do with any of that. Um, and for those who just want to, some eye candy to go along with this, we might as well, right? So here's the actual path that the Cape Sable hurricane took. This is exactly the point where they seeded it, and this is it turning and running into Georgia. Now they don't
Yeah,
want to admit to that. This is the
there it is.
original
That
report,
report.
history of Project Cirrus. All the documents are on weathermodificationhistory.com/interactive timeline. Here, I'll just drop this one in chat for you guys. Um, Somebody's talking about the Hatfields and McCoys in chat. And it's a great song by You Win the Chat of the Day. Great song by Widespread Panic. That's how I originally got into this stuff. Is like I was you know, I was a jam band follower. So like when I was in high school in the early 90s, I was going to Fish, Grateful Dead, and Widespread Panic concerts. So when I heard the song Hatfield by Widespread Panic, I immediately was like, dude, this is crazy. And then I looked into it and it was a real story, and I was immediately hooked. I mean, just immediately hooked. So yeah, I mean, you win the comment of the day right there, just for knowing who Widespread Panic is. But great song.
Well, some more background into that Project Cirrus, and it's kind of funny because So they fly out into the Atlantic Ocean, right? And they drop, I don't know how much, how many pounds of silver iodide or dry ice or whatever it was that they seeded this storm with. But this was before the time of satellites and satellite imagery.
That's right.
So they fly out there, right, and then they come back to base, and they're like, "Oh, okay, well, let's go see how the storm is doing now." And so they take a break for a couple hours, and then they get back in the planes and they fly back out there. And then the storm had done a 180-degree turn and was now headed back for the Georgia coast. And so, I mean, it was such a disaster, and it's such a ridiculous story. But the reality is that the United States government and who knows what other private contractors, they have not left a hurricane untouched since that time. There is not a single hurricane that they have not attempted to modify, test, whatever it is. And so when you actually pull up that government report or the General Electric report, actually, when you pull that report up and you read about it, you'll see you'll see them actually defining it and what they did and telling that entire story about how they basically flew out there, dropped the dry ice, how they did it,
Yep.
and
And that wasn't the only storm they modified. And then you get to Project Storm Fury, and we're talking about what was it? How many years? 1962 through 1983. The part that doesn't get told about Project Storm Fury is that just like in Vietnam, the CIA was involved in Project Storm Fury as well. Now, it's really interesting because the Air Force basically wanted to set the record straight. So they printed a book, which I have around here somewhere. They printed this thing. Um, it's in the U.S. Air Force Historical Foundation Journal, summer 2004, and they specifically by name mentioned my website 4 times in it. And what's interesting is, don't take my word for it, take their word for it. Perception versus reality, the true history of weaponized weather and Operation Popeye in Southeast Asia. In this document, by the way, Dominic we took the PDF and we printed our own book copy, but the PDF's on the website for free. In it, they not only claimed that they were messing with hurricanes to steer them into Cuba, to kill Castro's sugar crops. They were doing a rain embargo to make the rainfall in, the ocean before it got to the island. But he said the craziest shit I've ever heard. He said they not only steered a hurricane, but they literally created the hurricane. Now I've not seen that's written anywhere else. Anybody who were to say that, they would say, well, you're completely, utterly full of crap. But I didn't say it. Literally, it's posted in the Journal of the Air Force Historical Foundation. Um, and I found that even me, I mean, this was last summer when this finally got published. And that's the first time I've ever heard that anywhere. Especially like the gall of them to even post it. I was like, you got to be kidding me, bro. Did you just actually say that? And they did. But I mean, I've never heard anybody say we can create freaking hurricanes. Here, I'm gonna just bring this up real quick because this is just too good not to show. And you can download this for free. Everything on my website's open source. This is from the Operation Popeye um, link in
yeah, and
chat right there.
I've been studying this recently, Operation Popeye. Um, I wanted to actually pull up all of those Senate hearings in regards to this,
Let me go back to
what
this
they were doing,
Cuba.
because this was the original testing ground for weather modification, like the real serious testing ground for biological warfare.
You cannot make this shit up right here. Later, between 1966 and 75, a more operational phase of the Navy's weaponized hurricane modification effort took place, sponsored by the same folks that ran rainmaking operations in Southeast Asia. That's what C means. And they're talking about Operation Popeye. So the same people that did Operation Popeye, they're now attacking Cuba, whereby the Navy, and this is China Lake Naval Warfare Center at in California. They say China Lake here. Created, bro. You don't see this shit anywhere. Created, intensified, and steered hurricanes toward Cuba to wreak havoc on the Cuban economy in an overall effort to destabilize the island nation's agricultural industries, including sugarcane, tobacco, coffee, and bananas for export. This weaponized hurricane seeding operation was additionally offset by another covert cloud seeding weaponized weather modification application designed to strategically cause severe droughts in Cuba, again to destabilize the agricultural exports. Now, the guy was doing this, and I'm not exaggerating when I say this, because look, weather modification history, like there. So like they literally are calling out weather modification history, my website. Maybe it's a coincidence. Maybe it's all just a coincidence. But I said some stuff about Henry Kissinger, and they start with no, Kissinger didn't have anything to do with this. I find it fascinating to say the least. But then they go on to talk about that, and to this day I still don't have a name for it. Nile Blue is the program, the project, the computer that was involved in this. And I haven't updated this page yet, but I only talk about the rain embargo, which they mentioned. So literally in September or summer of 2024, this got published. It is the longest article ever published in the history of this journal. And they said that they did that. It's damn near 60 pages long because of the importance of it. So if you actually look at what happened there, no, that's the lawsuit. Another CIA plot, Cuba crops. This is from the San Francisco Examiner in 1976. But the seeding near Cuba was to cause less rain, not more. It was supposed to squeeze rain out of clouds before it reached the island. You might say we tried to embargo rain clouds. There, so literally, I've had this on here for a long time. Um, and here's another one. CIA are the weathermen. Did the CIA order weather modification to ruin Cuban sugar crops in 1969 and 1970? Lowell Pont, former researcher, he's the one that's blown the lid on all this stuff. So it was featured in several different, and they talk about ARPA's Iliac and their Nile Blue computer system that was one of the first like climate models in reality. That's what it was called, Nile Blue, and it was like a weather slash climate model for doing weather warfare. But of course, I made a graphic with Henry Kissinger in it, and they're like, no, in fact, Henry Kissinger did not start Operation Popeye or the Cuba stuff. You need to get it right, Jim. And I'm like, okay, fine. I'll just publish your freaking link right here, and then I'll publish the original right here. So David Reed, Perception versus Reality, it's all cited. You can go see the original. And I'll throw the original in chat for you guys. Here you go. Little bonus for nugget for everybody. But you don't see this kind of stuff coming straight out of the Air Force's mouth. It's pretty damn rare. So yeah, I thought this was absolutely fascinating.
Well, then,
For them to say created a hurricane is insane.
yeah, I've never read this. I've never read that before.
It's brand new. It's hot off the press. I literally got it September of last year. So I've only read it twice. And I'm gonna like put it into the timeline. When I get new material, I just update my weather modification history timeline. Um, and because I want it to be accurate. You know what I mean? So like when you get new news, you got to think about it two ways. Like, first of all, you go, are they telling me the truth? Is this the actual truth, or is this propaganda also? Just because it's got Air Force on it doesn't mean it's true. Who the fuck is David Reed? Well, I actually know who David Reed is. So, like, I'm inclined to believe him because he's from P3 Publications and he's put out probably 20 papers that I've read in the last 20 years. Um, so if he's saying it, it's probably true. So I'm like 90% true. And he's saying that they not only steered hurricanes into Cuba, but they created them. So that begs the question: how the
Well,
hell do
I
you
had,
create a hurricane?
if you look back on my timeline on Twitter, so shortly after Hurricane Helene, I got shut down on Facebook. I had posted I basically had synced up the Weatherbird, the United States Air Force Weatherbird flight path on
Yep.
flight radar with the true color satellite imagery. And basically, what you see is this. And anybody that knows weather modification history knows that these weatherbirds were used since the very beginning. That even the 1947 Project Cirrus, the original Project Cirrus, was a WC-130 weatherbird plane. Um, these have always been historically the planes that they've been using for weather modification. So anyway, um, Hurricane Helene was making its approach up the west coast of Florida, and I was watching the flight path of both the NOAA plane and the United States Air Force plane, but I synced it up much later after the storm made landfall. And what you can see are these huge convection clouds and plumes. Basically, the storm was exploding, and it was right in the path of this U.S. Air Force Weatherbird plane. And so I posted that in a video, and then within 24 hours, my Facebook page was shut down. That was when I went on to Twitter, and that was when I set up my Twitter account. Was October 24, and but the point is that shortly after that, you had Hurricane Milton, and then you had another hurricane that actually went through the middle of Cuba. And I had done a deep dive, and in Guantanamo Bay is where you see these radar systems. And coming out of this radar system in Guantanamo Bay, and what I later learned was the NEXRAD systems that are set up all throughout the Caribbean. But with the mid-level water vapor and low water vapor maps, what you were seeing looked like EMF through these storms. And I posted that on Twitter. It was one of my first posts on Twitter. It was the flight path of this U.S. Air Force plane, for one. And then secondly was the whole, basically, Guantanamo Bay, which is completely blacked out, by the way, from Google Earth and Google Maps. So you can't see anything in
I have a
Guantanamo
way
Bay.
around that.
Huh?
I have a way around that.
Yeah, so you can't see anything around that. But one of my most popular posts on Twitter was basically watching on the mid-level water vapor. You basically see what look like massive energy bursts, frequencies that are basically getting blasted into this hurricane, probably just a few hours before it made landfall. And I love to reference the tornado and hurricane control device patent, not because of the fact that maybe the government's using it or private contractors are using it, but because it shows the physics of how weather can be manipulated just by using these quote unquote mega generators. And
Well,
so,
this is where I kind of I'm at odds with the bullshitters, like the patents. I know the patent you're talking about. I have 1181 patents. Like on weather mod history, and that patent. I saw that patent 1,000 times. You know what I mean? Like everybody, it's got the two whirly doos. Going up. I could show it right now. I mean, there's no point in doing it. What's interesting about it, let me go to this. I just want to get your feedback on this because this is something that I don't
no,
think
we
they'll.
haven't talked about this yet. And
No, we
also
haven't.
because I know I've watched some of your videos where you have spoken about NextRad and other things like this. And again, if there is a system that is capable of doing it, modifying weather, amplifying weather, altering weather, it would be the next rad array. I mean, at least that's my thought. Now, when people talk about the next rad array and gaining popularity, you had spoken about a Dane Wigington video in regards to Hurricane Helene. He
Yeah.
basically showed zero proof about
Yeah.
next rad altering the weather. He showed pretty much zero proof. He just mentioned the transmitters on the ground, but show some proof.
Well, I mean, let's take it a step further. What he actually said was these are going to have a repelling effect, and basically, no weather can, no storm can
Yeah,
go
yeah,
the way where.
exactly. Yeah.
But dude, like it just rolled on by. So why would you even say that it would stop a hurricane?
Well, so
I
if
mean,
you
that
look
was his words, not mine. You know what I
now,
mean?
if you look, yeah, I remember this because I was actually watching this the other day. I went back and kind of went through your archives. But if you go on to Florida Sky Watchers on Facebook, I have a post that's pinned. And what you see in that post is the mid level water vapor of Hurricane Helene right as it's making landfall. And so when he's saying that it's being repelled, it's not that it's being repelled. I just think that these microwaves, and there's a lot of data that proves this, there's a lot
Well,
of studies that
let me
prove
give
it.
you an alternative perspective, and you feel free to push back on this. So a NexRad radar is a 750,000 watts peak. Okay. So what you have is a klystron, and it's an amplifier, and it makes a peak power of 750,000 watts. Um, the average, what's called your RMS power out of an XRAD is about 1,400 watts. Now, when I was first starting this stuff, I would say from 2008 through about 2012, me and Dutch Sense were like this, and we were both, talking about the next rad steering hurricanes. We even did joint videos like on this, when it was Hurricane Sandy, Hurricane Aaron, a couple other ones. Um, but then very quickly, it all fell apart when I started to, really like talk to scientists about this. But I don't trust scientists. You know what I mean? Like we all know how trust the science went with, what in 2020. So a lot of people don't trust science anymore, but you can't really get past this number. And this isn't from any old source. This is straight from Dr. Arnold A. Barnes Jr. at the Weather Modification Test Technology Symposium in 97. And he's basically telling you, here's how we're going to do owning the weather in 2025 for real. um, you know, there is the Convention on Prohibition of Military, the NMOD treaty, but screw it, like we need to reevaluate our position, even though NMOD banned weather warfare in light of 19 years of scientific advances. We need to prepare for technological surprise. If our enemies are going to do weather warfare, we need to be good at it too. So, of course, and then he goes to HARP, and then he goes to weather modification using carbon black. And then he talks about increasing cirrus cloud cover using carbon black cloud seeding to deny visual satellite high altitude reconnaissance and all that. But the point is, when you look at this, you're talking about 7 times 10 to the 14 joules per second. Joules per second equals watts. So if you have 1,340 watts per meter squared at the top of the atmosphere, and you have you know a hurricane is equivalent of 200 kilotons of TNT per second. That is 7 with 15 zeros behind it. So that's 7 quadrillion watts of energy per second in a hurricane. That's where I go, all right, let me get this straight. Even if a NexRad was 750,000 watts, let's double, let's triple, let's 10 times it. Let's say it's 7.5 million watts. It would still pale in comparison to 7 quadrillion watts. And the main problem I have with this is like from my personal perspective, and you know what? I got a perfect little idea for you. I want to see what you think about this theory, because this theory is based in, not just what I'm saying, what Irving Langmuir said, Irving Langmeyer and right here. So Irving Langmeyer said this. Where's the damn picture at? This is the difference between chemical and electric weather modification. He said that, damn it, I gotta hide us somehow. Oh well, doesn't matter. Um, Man, there's no way to get us off the screen, is there? How about this? That works. In the amount of energy liberated by silver iodide, the effect of 30 milligrams of silver iodide under optimum conditions equals that of one atomic bomb. So the fact that people are so focused on, the NEXRADs, the HARPs, the radio frequency, they're all non-ionizing radiation. Whereas chemical, whether it's carbon black dust, whether it's silver iodide, they generate energy through heat transfer. So that picture I was showing earlier, of the hurricane dusting thing, that's basically the same idea. Is that you could go and you could dust a hurricane with chemicals, and that's the soot, the carbon black dust or black carbon. It absorbs the heat of the sun.
Well, there's a great, yeah, what you're talking about is illustrated. There was a paper. Okay, let me back up a little bit. So in
Feel free to
the,
share something if you want. Like,
yeah,
don't
no,
I won't hog it all.
no,
If you
no,
got
there's
like
a,
something you'd rather share,
no, along the
jump in there.
lines of what you're saying, and I posted this too. So I have a post that's pinned on Twitter, and in under that post is a scientist talking about carbon black and how you can actually heat the atmosphere at a certain level
Yeah,
with the carbon black to cause the convection currents.
that's right.
And so, yes, that has potential too. I can't, I never linked to it, but basically, I went through owning the weather in 2025,
Yep.
and then I went into the bibliography, and I pretty much read every single thing that they referenced in that paper. I read everything.
I read the entire Air Force 2025, not just owning the weather. Because a lot of the other papers are as important, if not more important. A
Well,
lot
there
of
was a
people.
paper that was produced about 3 months prior to that, owning the weather in 2025, and it was the Air Force document that was like an empirical study on basically future. I can't remember the
Future
title of it.
weapons circa 2025. That's the NASA document.
Yeah, I'll have to pull it up and send it to you later because I don't have it all queued up now. But
I can find it in 10 seconds. Dude, if you fart on the internet, I can smell it. It's future weapons circa 2025 NASA. And there it is. Damn, that was quick. Let's see
yeah,
how long it takes
there
them.
was another study that I found in regards to the NEXRAD, and it was about rainfall totals around radar systems in Florida. And basically, what this study proved was that there was a reduction in rainfall directly around radar towers. And basically, what these towers are capable of doing is drying the atmosphere out. And whether that is just a side effect of the microwave energy that is being emitted or if it is intentional is remains unseen. But basically what they found is that in a very specific radius around these towers there was pretty much an absence of rain altogether, and you can see that on true color satellite imagery when you put the composite radar in place. You can see
Yeah.
how moisture tends to be evaporated very quickly around these towers and then outwards. I highlighted it way more in the with the fog in Florida and the southeast, and I posted several videos on that as well. So that is, in my opinion, now I'm not saying that this is the end all be all. I think that what we're seeing with these hurricanes when they're making their approaches is there could be a whole variety of things that are being utilized at their disposal. Are they being utilized for good, or are they being utilized for nefarious purposes? Remains to be seen. And will we ever know about these things that are being done?
That's the most important part. Is like, so just if you know the history of all of this, then and because we, we got pretty much like a forensic meteorology team of, not only skeptics but people who know the terminology and all that stuff. And during Helene and Milton, we were going through it. We're watching flight trackers, but we were also watching like marine traffic. Have you ever checked out marinetraffic.com?
No, no.
So one of the big things, if you actually go into the history of this, William Gray, when he was talking about carbon dust absorption of solar radiation in 1974, he's pretty much, the one who got all this idea going. And he wasn't talking about flying above a hurricane, which is interesting. I mean, it's interesting to me. Maybe I'm just a fucking dork, you know what I mean? Um, but he was actually talking about doing it from the ground. So, like, whereas here we see, how to halt a hurricane by dropping, this in the scenario we were just talking about,
William
you
Gray.
got
Yep.
your WC-130, your Hercules or whatever, flying over, at 50,000 feet, dropping carbon black dust into it. Now, in that scenario, it wouldn't be the hurricane tracking plane that's on flight radar. It would be a fleet of them. And it literally says fleet of transport aircraft carrying this and dumping repeatedly. These aren't going to show up on any flight radars. You know what I mean? Let's be real. Like, if they're doing this
Oh yeah,
intentionally,
for
if the
sure.
military's doing it, it's not going to be on any flight tracker. It's not going to be on ADSB Exchange. It's not going to be on Flight Radar 24. It's not even going to be on Skyglass. Sorry, Monkey Works. It's not going to be on any of those, because if you're doing some ill shit, you don't turn on a beacon that says, "Oh, by the way, watch me do some ill shit." Um, but William Gray, whenever he was talking about this, and I may have a quick link to it.
I just pulled it up on my Twitter too because I
Yeah,
could read it for you if you want. The excerpt from what he says exactly.
yeah, this is all I wanted to do is just bring up the picture from it. So, like, this is weather modification by carbon dust absorption of solar energy, 1976. It says here, but it's actually 74. I don't know why it says that, but you can see in the graphic, and I'll just go to the big version of it real quick. Open image and new tab. They're actually talking about releasing the carbon black from the ground. So this could be done by ship, not just planes, and that it would be the inflow comes along the ground, gets sucked into the eye wall, and then the outflow occurs across the top. So
Oh,
this is the Sarah shield at the top. So two things can be true at the same time. That it could be done with boats or it could be done with planes. If it's done with planes, there's a cirrus cloud shield along the top of it, which you cannot see above. So if a plane's flying above it, nobody on the ground's ever going to see it. And there's not real time satellite video for us to watch it. And if they don't have a transponder on, you never knew it was there. Simultaneously, they're talking right here. This is radius in kilometers. This is 350 freaking kilometers away from the hurricane. He's saying dump carbon black here at ground level and it'll get sucked into the hurricane. That was the original point. And then they go on to talk about, oh yeah, by the way, we can have a carbon make section in the jet engine to make carbon black dust. Illustration of how carbon dust would or should be generated from jet exhaust. Thermodynamics of proposed engine modifications, how we would do it with the afterburner and a carbon make section,
hmm.
all that shit. So, like, for me, it's like people, they want to get stuck in like, I know that this is how it's done. And I'm like always going, it could be this or it could be that. And we would never even know about it. Like, you being able to like make a video and prove beyond a shadow of a doubt that secret government doing some ill shit is impossible because they don't have to turn their flight transponders on. They could be doing it via a boat, but as far as I'm concerned, and I catch a lot of hell for this. I'm gonna be straight with you. I could be fucking famous tomorrow if I wanted to go out and tell everybody what they want to hear, but I've never read a single paper where anybody ever has controlled any weather ever with an electromagnetic frequency ever. So and that's pouring through hundreds of thousands of documents with the photographic memory, reading all of the patents. Nobody ever has done it. The only exception to that is with cloud ionizers, which use negatively charged ions and laser beams. So, like lasers, yes. Why? It's ionization. It's ionizing radiation. But NexRad, is was S band. Um, it's not ionizing radiation. Even Bernard Eastland, the guy who founded, the original Arco patents for HARP, when he was talking about HARP steering, the jet stream and shit, he was talking about 100 billion watts of power. Yeah, 100 billion watts. HARP is 3.6 million watts with 5 billion watts worth of effective radiated power. It's not even close. Um, so the thing I keep going back to is if you cannot generate more power and more heat than what the sun provides, then you're kind of like, you got, just imagine two sumo wrestlers and a ball. On one side, you got the sun, and the ball is the hurricane. And on the other side, you got a 5-year-old. That's basically the comparison that I'm making here. And as much as it would make me popular for me to go, oh yeah, dude, this is definitely a thing, I keep going back to laws of thermodynamics, laws of physics, meteorology, talking with so many different people and arguing, very vehemently. You're
Well,
fucking wrong. I know what I'm talking about here. And they going, no, dude, like it's either ionizing or it's not. It's the amount of power in a hurricane's too, even in a small storm. If I go back to that chart, it's still like it's many times larger than even the most powerful radar on the planet that I know of is the ANFPS 185 at Eglin Air Force Base, and it's like 32 million watts. So like while everybody's making videos about NexRads, which are less than a million watts, right there on the panhandle where Hurricane Helene, came in, is this big ass radar, and it's 32 million watts. That's 10 times as powerful as HARP. But nobody mentioned that one. So that's where the disconnect happens for me. Just me personally. Like I'm going, well, if that thing isn't steering the freaking weather, then how the hell can a NexRad? Does that make sense?
yeah, I mean, I understand what you're saying, and without having any clear evidence, I mean, yeah, if the government is going to be doing some covert stuff, they're certainly going to be covering their tracks. They're not going to be
Yeah,
signaling, "Hey, yeah, we're out here in the ocean." But that's the other interesting thing about these planes when they are flying around the perimeter and through the eye wall of these storms. They're not getting any scrutiny at all. They're getting zero scrutiny, and
that's right.
it's very simple. It's like, look, you have a plane that is potentially has been involved in weather modification since the beginning of the practice in the 1940s, but yet nobody's talking about. No one's even suggesting it. In Hurricane Milton, there was a scientist's ashes that had gotten dumped into the storm as a memorial. Okay, and they were like, "Oh, this is yeah, we're doing a memorial to this great meteorologist, and and we're dumping his ashes into the hurricane." And I'm like, "Well, how are you going to dump the ashes into the hurricane? Just going to open up the trap door and throw the ashes out into the storm?" So you know what I mean. So the
Yeah.
mainstream media was celebrating this and praising the scientist, but yet they get zero scrutiny whatsoever in regards to what this practice meant. How are you going to just open up the hatch of the WC-130 and throw the ashes out into the storm? I mean, how are you doing it?
I mean, apparently, you know.
But along the lines of what you were saying, there's all types of ways and means nowadays that they could be doing things that we would have no idea about. For example, in 2019, they started retrofitting the Navy ships, the Navy warships, with all of the high energy lasers. There have been
Yeah.
major advancements in
I mean, there's
regards to,
directed energy weapons on damn near every naval ship at this point.
yeah,
It's
exactly. And
it's a
also,
great point.
the technology has advanced exponentially in just the past 5 years as well. There could be submarines. You've got nuclear submarines. You never know the coordinates and positions of those things. They could be under any hurricane that they wanted to be at any time. No one would ever know the difference. And even the planes that we do see that are flying around the perimeter and into these storms are getting absolutely zero scrutiny. If you mention anything about it, you're a conspiracy theorist. And then the last thing that I wanted to say, and I made a point about this in Hurricane Milton, if you are going to adhere to the argument of persistent condensation trails, greenhouse gases, increased water vapor in the atmosphere, and all of the freaking data that points to inadvertent weather modification, then why are you flying and diverting hundreds of commercial airliners around the perimeter of a hurricane that's a category 4 storm and not grounding those fucking planes? That's what needs to happen immediately.
Because I mean, that I think you hit the nail on the head with that, because at the end of the day, all of the exhaust particulates, you're talking,
They're
close to
seeding
one.
agents.
Yeah, they're it's just seating. I mean, you've already got all this available water vapor in the. What happened to my Zoom, dude? Like my focus went out of focus. Anyway, fuck it. And we saw this back in Hurricane Sandy. We saw this in so many different cases where you see all of the flight traffic is routed in front of the path of the hurricane.
Yes.
So by laying down all of that CCN, that cloud condensation nuclei, you're basically exponentially growing the storm. Now I've heard a whole bunch of people that would say, the exact opposite. They go, "Oh, well, there's already so much pollution up there. What's a little bit of jet
No, that's
exhaust?"
bullshit.
And I think I agree with you 100% on this point. What I've seen as a commonality over and over again is when you route all of the flights in front of, like they're right around the tailwinds, that are coming around the outer bands, and all of that's getting sucked in. Now, of course, they would go, well, no, the outer bands actually push out. So technically, that's the upper, atmosphere, 40 to 50,000 feet height. And I would go, yeah, but it's doing this. I mean, it's literally doing this. So what was up there is coming down and it's going right back into it. You live in Florida, I live in South Carolina. We all know that hurricanes are big fucking vacuums. They come through, they vacuum up the area, and then afterwards, the air is pristine. There's no pollution whatsoever for like the next month. You've experienced this, right?
Well, historically, yes, but recently, no. I mean, look, Hurricane Helene, and then 12 days later, Hurricane Milton. The skies never really cleared up. Yeah, Hurricane Andrew, old school hurricanes, yes. Hurricane comes through, and then, yeah, high pressure for days, clear blue skies. I saw it with Katrina as well, but I don't remember in recent times where that's happened again. But along the lines of what we were saying, not only is it cloud seeding and carbon and all kinds of other potential, nanoparticulate that can become condensation nuclei, you're also causing convection currents. You're trapping heat.
That's a fact.
You're accelerating these storms. And I'd be willing to bet any amount of money that if you ground all flights within 1,000-mile radius of a hurricane, we'll see the strength of these hurricanes dropping instantly. And that could
It
be
would it
done
would
immediately.
it only makes sense. Anybody who understands. If you don't know this, I'm going to just like simplify it for you. What do you need to make a cloud? You need three things: water vapor, cloud condensation nuclei, ionization, some kind of static to make the water stick to the other thing. So, whenever you have something as large as a hurricane, which has all the water it could possibly need when it's coming up through, especially warm, shallow water, it's just literally hoovering that water up. So, in order to make more clouds, all it needs is more seeds, which is going to create more precipitation. So, in the event of, whether it's ship tracks, whether it's planes, emitting all these particles, whether it's government intentionally doing secret shady shit, dumping stuff on top of it, all of these, it's all the same thing. It's dumping chemicals, cloud condensation nuclei to intensify the storm. Of course, the Department of Homeland Security, they had a hurricane modification workshop in Boulder, Colorado in 2008. And they said, nah, we want to prevent the next Katrina. So that's why we're doing this hurricane modification workshop. And they presented all these ideas, and along comes Mosh Alamaro from MIT University saying, let's use carbon black dust to steer hurricanes. Same idea, re-rinsed over and over again. And they went on to do the Hurricane Aerosol Microphysics Program. This was funded by the Department of Homeland Security. And then NASA did GRIP, which is the Genesis and Rapid Intensification Program. So they did do the studies, and it's like, well, what happened after that? Oh, we just gave up. We were like, fuck it. We don't want to protect the United States from the next Katrina. We spent all this money and did all these studies, but we're not doing anything with it. Swear. And nobody ever steered a hurricane over Cuba, you retard, because these guys said it. They could steer and create hurricanes over Cuba in the 60s and 70s, but with today's technology, we can't go back to the moon, and we definitely don't mess with hurricanes. Um, I think it's freaking
Yeah, I
I
say that
mean,
all the time. I say
I
that
mean,
all the
I'm
time when people try and challenge me. And I say, "Do you really think that the United States government, the Air Force, and 80 years of weather modification history is just going to be abandoned with the investment of probably who knows countless billions of dollars at this point?"
yeah,
They're not just going to abandon this. This is like the space race in the late 90s. You read that paper, Owning the Weather in 2025. I mean, we're here. Welcome to the future.
yeah.
We
And
are here
Space
now.
Cast 2020 before that, which
Yeah.
was almost completely redacted. I
And
got a copy of it from the Black Vault, and I was like, dude, this entire page is erased except for Russia could create infrared defeating clouds. And the rest of the page is blotted out to this day. Um,
one of the real interesting things about that paper, though, Jim, is that if you go and you look at the authors of that paper uh, from 1996, you'll see that all of these individuals have advanced within the military industrial complex, every single one of them. And so it's interesting, like these guys are still involved in all of this stuff. I think it was 9 or 10 individuals that wrote that document. I went and did a deep dive and researched all of them to see, what are they doing now? Are they still in the
where
air?
are they now?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And so what you'll find is that all these individuals are still in the Department of Defense, or they're now in private contractors. One specifically was involved in some autonomous, you know, UAV company that is basically creating these drones that they were talking about in that document. The carbon dust, the black carbon dust, was mentioned in there and referenced. The William Gray paper was in the bibliography, and that's where I pulled that
Yeah.
quote from. That's on my Twitter in regards to how you can heat an atmospheric space. I mean, you see this every single day in Florida. We saw it in the approach to with Hurricane Milton. We saw it with the approach to Hurricane Helene. I mean, you can see the convection clouds. You can see the weather modification that's happening. How is it happening? To the extent that it's being done, will we ever know? It's hard to say. I mean, who's going to be the whistleblower that's going to come forward and save the day from inside the government? Because as this weather modification becomes more popular, and this has always been my hope, as weather modification becomes more popular, it's already mainstream, but when is the individual that's behind the controls at Space Force or the US Air Force, when are they going to come forward and get some balls and come forward and blow the whistle? When are we going to have that
Yeah,
information?
I mean, it's going to take, like a real Snowden, not the fake Snowden, not that, controlled dissemination crap that happened, because that wasn't real. Um, that's just my opinion, you know, because everything that he said, 90% of it, we knew about it before he ever said anything. I
Yeah,
get your thoughts on,
From William
yeah,
Binney.
that that's the OG before Snowden that he's talking about.
Exactly.
So let's play Name That Radar. Um, so, for those who don't know about the Doppler radars, these are the Doppler radars that are spread across America. And this is why I kind of get stuck on this. So, like, we're going to just zoom in for a moment. You're right around here. You know, all I have right now is the Canadian SIGMET Doppler radar stations and the NEXRAD Doppler radar stations. This is on climateviewer.org. I'm a mapping nerd, in addition to other things. So what I did was I went and I mapped all these things out, like laser beams. Are there directed energy weapons near there? No, they could definitely shoot down the plane that hit the Pentagon, but there aren't any laser beams down here. There's a whole bunch out in New Mexico. These are directed energy tests. Like North Oscura Peak, White Sands Missile Range. This is literally where they test directed energy weapons. But I'm just looking at what's the possibilities. What could possibly be screwing with the thing? So then I get into, a lot of people don't know about these, but then there's a different type of Doppler radar, and they're called the Joint Surveillance System. Now, the Joint Surveillance System, these JSS radars, you don't see these. They don't show up on your NEXRAD maps, okay? But a lot of times, and at least in the case of Into Thin Air and Dane Wigington, when they were showing that, the line coming from here was going straight to here. So literally, like, I'm looking at this, I'm looking at the radar animation, and there's a beam return coming from this station right here. Another time we had this one and it was going through here. So in that video that both Into Thin Air and Dane had, I'm going, well, the interference patterns can be a possibility. Then you have what's called terminal Doppler weather radar. These are TDWRs, and you got a bunch of them down in here. These are usually very short range but highly accurate Doppler radars. They're almost exclusively at an airport. Like if I come down here, they're usually near an airport, near a runway, so that they can, tell what the runway conditions are going to be like. They don't put them too close. There's the runways right there. See? So they have them very close enough to an airport that they can tell like what the wind across the runway is going to be, things like that. So they're mainly pointed at the ground. But that's another one. They're called TDWRs. And then I go, okay, well, what else is there? And then I go to the big stuff. So then you have your integrated ocean observing system. So these are the four types of Doppler radars that are going on right now around the United States. So the IOOS, Integrated Ocean Observing System. These are Doppler radars that measure like wave heights and wave, like water directions and all of that stuff. So those are the four different types of Dopplers. And generally speaking, they're all pretty much within the same kind of power range.
Oh,
But
I want to add something to this. So I'd been doing a deep dive because of all of the fog that was happening in Florida in the months of January and beginning of February. And actually, they did use microwave cannons to test for fog dissipation. I can't remember specifically the study or the airport where it was done, but they blasted the fog, and I can't remember the power output, but basically it was 20 seconds they managed to dissipate and create, I don't know, quarter-mile visibility or something. So maybe you have that.
Yeah. So there have been many different things they've attempted
But this is
from.
more recent, like
Yeah,
1970s, maybe even 1980s. Can't remember exactly.
it's probably in the vault. I could pop to the
I gotta
1970s.
find it because I normally tag all this stuff too.
Yeah, I mean, I have so many things in here. It's like hard to find them at times. But yeah, this is all just from the
But
1970s.
I don't want to distract you off of what you
Yeah,
were saying. I just am remembering.
look at that. There's National Geographic.
That's looks like the Florida area. Oh no,
Yeah,
that's
that's
mountain.
Florida Today, but April 1972, National Geographic. Wispy wake of jet era. A contrail created by airlines exhaust grows into a cirrus cloud over the Colorado Rockies. Um, yeah, it's funny when you go back and you look at the history of this stuff because people really don't dig through old documents and look at all the. This is the Rainmaker dude running out there. It's just
So
I
the
love the.
Appleman experiment, the original Appleman experiment in 1952. Where was that? In Colorado, right?
Yeah, I want to say it's near Boulder because Boulder's where NCAR is now, and NCAR is like the top research place on the globe for weather modification activities. How did I lose my freaking map? Okay, so this is what I wanted to show you. This guy right here. So during Helene, this is the one that they ran over, and I'm gonna close this real quick. 32 million watts, 442 megahertz. And this is the ANFPS at Eglin Air Force Base. Don't believe me? I'll zoom in. There it is. Um, and
Damn.
that is a fucking hoss right there. Okay. I think we both can agree that's a fucking hoss. If you don't believe me that it's a hoss, I'll turn on HARP in the ionospheric heaters and I'll bring this up and then we can go flying around and go look at them. This is HARP up in Alaska, 3.6 million watts. Tromso in Norway, right at 1.2 million watts. Sura in Russia, this is the Sura ionospheric heating facility, 750,000 watts with an effective radiated power of 190 million watts. Um,
Oh wow.
Pretty badass. They actually burned holes in the ionosphere with this back in the day,
Jesus.
like in 1976. Pretty freaking crazy. The Arecibo array is now out of function. So this thing got destroyed. Basically, the gantry that was holding it up fell on it. So the point I'm trying to make here is we focus so much on these, and then you got the new kid on the block, which is EyesCat 3D, as you can see here. Um, the Tromso array is here. So there's the ionospheric heater. Then you got EyesCat 3D, which is this 3D array. And this is the new one, 5 million watts. It's going to be upgraded to 10 million watts. So even with the top of the line, and this is some science fiction looking shit. I mean, there's no other way to put this. I mean, look at that thing, dude. That's absolutely insane looking. Very sci-fi. I think it's close to like 11,
Where's the
15,000.
power generation to these things? Where is
Every
that?
one of these modules, that is a door.
Oh
You
wow.
look right there. That
That's
is a door that you can walk inside. That's a human-sized door.
that's a
And
generator.
every one of these has its generator, so the module itself
Wow.
is underneath it. Whereas, like with HARP, you can see the trailers. Um, they're in a separate spot.
Yeah.
Um, so the point I'm trying to make here with this is that like when you go over here to HARP, you can see the trailers. Those are the trailers right there. Each one of these is the power generation trailers, but in reality, all the power comes from the diesel engines over here, and then they're routed to all of these trailers that each runs an array. That's not even the point of all this. The point of all this is, what about this big fucking 32 million watt hunk of junker right here that nobody's talking about?
Let's see that satellite image from overhead on that one again. Let's see the Google Maps view.
Pretty crazy, right?
And what is that?
And you
Two
look
those are
at you
two
look at
those
it.
are two diesel tankers right there to hold the gas for this fucking thing.
Let me break loose because I had it locked on it. So let me close that. So now you can actually see how big it is compared to, there's a, vehicle. Okay. I mean, it's a hoss.
Yeah, and then it's got the gas power,
And
the storage right
there's
there.
the gas storage tanks for it.
Wow.
Yeah. HARP costs $500,000 per hour to turn it on. And it's 3.6 million watts.
How
Five
much?
hundred thousand $500,000 an hour to operate the HARP facility.
No way.
Yeah. In fact, I can show you what they look like. I didn't bring this map up, but I made one specifically for just the HARP project because it's more than just the ionospheric heater. So like when there was no satellite images of this, I guessed and I nailed it. Like I haven't had to move a dot on this. So like this is the MUIR modular UHF radar that's there. This is called Diagnostic Instrument Pad 1. These are the diesel generators that run the HARP facility. I was actually became friends with Chris Fallon, who's the director of HARP, and you've heard Angels Don't Play This Harp. Have you ever heard that about the book
Yes.
with Nick Begich? Um, the cool thing about this is like I was talking to Chris Fallon about it, and he told me, tell Nick Begich because I was going to be on a phone call with him. It was a Zoom call for a documentary Paula Randall Smith was making, and he said, tell Nick Begich when you see him that we named the 6 engines Angels 1 through 6. So, as like a fu to the public, they literally say, "No, Angels do play this harp because this one right here is Angel number 3 and this engine is Angel number 4." So that's what actually powers harp. These transmitters and all the details on it are right there. But basically, and then they've got their what I call Death Star 1, like where they actually operated
Control
from.
center.
Yeah, that's the control center there. How did I do that before? Okay, there. Yeah, so that's the control center, and you can see that pretty well there. Um, anyway, I'm making a new version of my map right now. So like this, the version I'm showing you right now is old and ghetto. I haven't updated this thing since 2018, but it's still got a lot of information on it. So the reason I bring this up is because people focus on all this stuff. They don't talk about anything like these pay pause. They don't talk about the old nav spacer, space fence.
I've
Um,
seen those before.
yeah, and they're freaking huge, bro. Like when you go
Yeah.
down to the ground and you look at them,
There's one
that's
in Texas somewhere that someone had sent me video of.
yeah the Kickapoo location. I'll go to that one.
Yeah, because it's
It's
actually blacked out. Well, anyway, when I was looking at it on Google Earth, I couldn't see it.
well, I cheat. So I have ESRI satellite, and then I have Bing satellite, and now I have Google Earth also, and I have other ones that I don't publish because I have to pay for them. And I mean, if people were actually to support, my work and the program, I would put them on the website, but it'd cost me a damn fortune. You know what I mean? Because for every image that's loaded in these backgrounds, I think that's the one Red River. This is the one, yeah, Lake Kickapoo. This one's huge, bro. Is that
Yeah.
the one you're talking about?
Where is this now?
This is Lake Kickapoo on Texas, and that's what the
Yeah, it's
old
like middle of
old
nowhere, Texas
yeah.
Panhandle.
And you zoom in and
Yes.
you can see like if I go back to
Yeah, Google Earth. It's like blurred out.
you can go check. Well, sometimes you get a better. It depends on
Yeah,
where you're
that's the
at.
one. That's
See,
the
that
one.
one's much sharper looking. But I put a big red freaking overlay so people could know what the hell they were looking at
Yeah,
because it's
yeah.
this
I had
train track.
somebody that had
Yeah,
sent me that.
this train track you're looking at right here is the damn radar. So like if you didn't know that,
Crazy.
you wouldn't know what you're even looking at. Like, why has he got a dot here? I mean, I don't see any radar. It's that big ass thing. It's a anyway. So the point I'm trying to make is you got all those things, and then let's just add more to the fuel to the fire. Let me close that. You got super dual auroral radar network. These are the super darns all over the place. The most powerful one in the world being G Camarca at 4.5 million watts. Then we got all the ELF and VLF generators. So I turned that on. Now it's getting really freaking crowded. Don't make me turn the cell phones on because then we're gonna get ugly. Um, but you talk about like up here in like Cutler, Maine, this is it right here. So like here's Cutler, Maine. And just to give you an idea, like how big these arrays are. That's all the antennas for it. And when you click on it, they're basically these really tall towers with all these wires going around it. And we're talking 1.8 million watts. So when I start thinking about, all of the power that's going into these storms, I don't think about just Dopplers. Like I'm going, well, there's way more than just damn Dopplers. Okay, let's be real. Um, that's the ECVAC. Anyway, I'm just looking at all this together. Then you got your Gwen towers, ground wave emergency network, typically around 300 to 500,000 watts. Then you've got all your cell phone towers, DTV. Literally, if I pulled up the FCC database, it'll make your head explode. Probably make my computer explode. So the point, I just wanted to give like some context to that because literally right here is where Helene came in. I mean, right
Actually,
on
no,
top,
no, no. It's off. It's right there by Perry. Actually, it's in the Bend area of Florida. So you see
right here.
Perry.
Yeah, right here was where it
Where
came
the
in. So
landfall.
we're
Yeah, it's
talking,
close enough.
yeah. I mean, we're not far off here, bud. You know what I mean? So
Yeah,
you got you got two joint surveillance systems, Doppler radars side by side right here.
yeah, and
You
Tyndall.
got a Doppler radar here, a
That's where I
Doppler
grew up
radar
too,
here,
by the way.
huh?
Well, I grew up in Panama City Beach, so I mean, I was right there next to that Air Force base.
So this
Sorry,
is the
that's
other,
actually a Tyndall Air Force.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. This is Eglin right up
there's a
here.
Navy base over there too.
Fort Walton. Oh, don't get me started, dude. I'm a map nerd. I'll get lost in the map.
Well, we got to
Um,
continue this conversation because I still haven't had lunch yet.
yeah, definitely. So the
Give
point
us a minute to
I
get queued up.
there's a lot of other things to consider, like when people are seeing these radar maps, like what else is screwing with the thing you're looking at? Because when I'm looking at NextRad radar, um, you can look at the NextRad radar, you can look at the radar animation. Yeah, they're broken right now. But you can
Really?
go to this is called the station data.
Oh, the link is broken.
Yeah, the link's broken. They changed the URL format. I've already fixed it on my computer. I haven't uploaded it. But you have what's called NextRad level 1 data, which most people are looking at, level 2 data, and then level 3 data. And for each one of these, you can pull up all of these other different, animations, data sources for them. And when you put it all together, it's absolutely insane when you try to like just kind of get a grasp of like all of the different information layers that they have just for a single Doppler radar, and then all of the shit that isn't on the map that could be interfering with it, could be screwing with the storm. There are no studies on interaction between, all of these power sources, like cell phones, all the 5G, 4G cell towers, high powered radars, all of that. But you have too many people, in my personal opinion, focusing on, well, this one NextRad station made this little line, and that means it steered the
Well, yeah,
hurricane.
I agree with you on that too.
I
Yeah.
think it's an
You
oversimplification,
can't
bro.
just look at it and be like, "Oh yeah, well look, this is this." You can't look at the radar network and the reflectivity and say, "Oh look, there's a what looks like a laser beam bursting out of this tower," and not show any effect as well. You just can't highlight it and say,
Yeah,
"Oh look, this is the cause of this tornado or this is the cause of this storm," but you're not actually making any connection to any of the satellite imagery simultaneously. You're not showing anything from the long wave infrared. You're not showing anything from the effects on the mid level water vapor. You're not showing anything in the changes of the clouds. I mean, yeah, I agree. I agree with you on that 100%. I mean, and you're right. Like back in 2018, I was talking about NextRad, and I'm like, well, look at this. Look at this radar network that's potentially altering the weather in one way or another. It's certainly affecting rain. There are studies that prove that. But how is it affecting the weather? Now all of a sudden you've got like Ariana Masters or whatever her name is, putting on a tinfoil hat on Instagram and making videos and adding sound effects, and she's got 100,000 views every post, and it is kind of comical. It's like there's really no science behind this, and you're not really making any conclusions. I think that in the end, yeah, you might be hurting the movement at large as a whole, with those
And it's
videos.
unfortunate. I mean, at the end of the day, there's going to be a lot of people who dive into a topic because they. I, let me put it this way: a lot of people would go, "Oh, well, they're just shilling because they want to make a buck," and I don't believe that. I think a lot of people are very well intended. You know what I mean? And they're trying to find answers. I'm still trying to find answers. Literally, like on my last video, if you watch it, it says not an expert for a freaking reason. I mean, in case y'all didn't catch that, that's why it says not an expert on there. um, because I don't have it all figured out. You know what I mean? And I've been doing this 20 freaking years. Um, and the day we all agree is the day we could all be wrong. So it's, I like to have people, have different opinions. And let's talk about it, because I may be thinking about this the wrong way. And I want to, always be open to the possibility that I got it all wrong. I was trying to get the Ramby. Have you ever used the RAM slider?
Yeah, but I never figured it out.
I want to show you one layer before you go because this
I
is going to be.
haven't like mastered it, and I've tried so many times, and I just don't know if my
It's
computer
being a butthole
processor is
right
fast.
now, and I swear it's just coming up blank for me. I'm gonna just like
I
throw it in.
feel like the Cooperative Institute for Atmospheric, whatever that is, CIRA, I feel like they have like the monopoly on all that data. And because every time that
I'm
I've tried to,
stealing it right now. I'm stealing it right now. I'm trying to integrate this into ClimateViewer 3, the new version that's coming out. Because damn that. I mean, they're not going to hog all that GOES-R data and
that they
not.
are, though. I mean, like, I don't know what the trick is to figure out how to actually use and
You're
access
right.
that
You're
data.
right. You're right. You're totally right, though. That's the funny
Because
part.
I've spent hours trying to figure it out, and I'm like, eventually I just give up, and then I just like download and steal their videos because it's all public information anyway.
Okay, so this is my
Cooperative
favorite.
Institute for what the hell is the acronym?
Sierra, regional atmosphere, some shit like that.
Research,
Anyway,
atmospheric research,
yeah.
or something like that.
So this one's called. If you go to the thing, it's all the way down here at the bottom, and it's Oh shit, I lost it. Day night phase. Well, hell, does it not show? There it is. Day cloud phase distinction. This is your jammy right here. Okay, JMA. Look for that. Okay, and what it shows down here at the bottom, it actually shows what the hell is going on? Oh, I'm on the wrong screen. All right, there. What it shows at the bottom here is water at surface, land surface, snow surface, glaciating cloud, low water cloud, high thick cloud, high thin ice cloud, thin mid water cloud. So they're all color coded
Nice.
so that you can actually tell, like what altitude the
Yeah,
cloud
what
is.
elevation? Yeah.
Yeah. It's a game changer for being able to actually see what the clouds are, how high they are. This is one of our favorite tools. It's hell on a computer. You better have. Don't try to live stream and bring this some bitch up at the same time unless you got fiber, which I do. Because
Yeah.
these are really large images. You're talking about the entire globe,
When
you know, in a single shot
the
and
live stream
animating it.
crashes.
And I mean, my computer eats this for lunch, bro. Let's be real. I'm spoiled rotten by my computer.
Couldn't
But yeah, and
get these damn
you can
videos
literally
to
just flip it
play.
around go over to the Japanese Himawari, and it'll stay on the day thing, but it'll be dumb. And then I'll have to like control F5 to refresh to get it to switch. So like then I can come over here and then actually watch the sun rise over the
What you
Pacific.
should probably do, this is my suggestion, is you should go on here and you should do a quick like tutorial on how to actually use this program, because this is the best in terms of resolution and satellite data and imagery and pretty much having every access to all of this stuff. This is the top of the line.
Yeah, it's definitely the go to spot. But I'm throwing that in chat for everybody. By the way, Ram, that's 2MB dash slider dot sierra dot colorado state dot edu. And then you just choose your satellite right here from the front one, and then they have all these different products to choose from. You can get really funny with this. There's a lot of, I don't want to go ramble for the next hour about all the cool shit that's in here, but let's just say there's a lot of cool shit in here. But I'm trying to integrate this into ClimateViewer 3D and then make it literally like a one-click button kind of thing, where you
Yeah.
can build an animation and have that over there. But in the meantime, this is probably one of the fanciest tools. Jeff, the meteorologist in my Telegram chat, shout out to Jeff. If you guys want to join our Telegram, connect.climateviewer.com, you can come over there, give a holler at Jeff. He'll tell you how to work this damn thing because he knows even better than I do. But with that being said, I'm just going to close this thing out. Once again, everybody go over to Florida Sky Watchers on Facebook. Give them a like. If you're feeling benevolent, give them a subscribe. Send them some of your pictures, especially if you're in the area. Apparently, you've got South Carolina Sky Watchers and a couple others.
Yeah, I started setting up a network of sky watchers now across the United States, and um, what I wanted to do was get activists from every state to help admin and manage those pages. But again, this is only just a hobby. I'm certainly not doing this full time, or I mean, I am, but it's compromising my lifestyle in the meantime.
Tell me about it, dude. I'm working 40 hours a week as a
Yeah,
security guard and like getting, freaking just constantly bombarded with people saying, please come on my podcast. And I'm like, I can't come on your podcast because you record at 10 o'clock in the morning and I'm at work, bro. If you can't work with me, I can't come on your podcast.
yeah,
I mean, people have no idea how much time people like us spend on trying to, research and then create the content and put it out there. That's why I say I could tell you put the work in. You shared a video with me on X, and I was like, I'll be damned. Here's a guy who's actually using proper terminology and not throwing around chemtrails or geoengineering when talking about cirrus cloud formation. So, bravo to you, man. Keep up the
appreciate
good
it, man.
work, and thanks for being my crash test dummy. Um, this was a hell of an experience just setting it up today. I've been wanting to have people on to do interviews with for a very long time, and Mark was kind enough to just jump to the head of the line, and I appreciate it, dude. Thanks for hanging out with me. It's been fun.
Yeah, man. Yeah,
So
yeah, I definitely appreciate this conversation too. So obviously, I'm not going to pretend like I know everything, and
I don't
but I
either, dude.
definitely think that as far as the anti-geoengineering movement goes, I definitely think that you are one of the most knowledgeable. And but again, I mean, we'll never know everything, and we might maybe we'll be fortunate enough in 10 or 15 years from now to have a vague idea of what the government was doing today. You know?
I've always said this that in the 1950s they were literally spraying zinc cadmium sulfide out of C-119 flying boxcars, spraying radioactive material from coast to coast. Operation Large Area Coverage. Look it up. I have an article on my website about it called "It Was a Conspiracy." Military, government experiments on unknowing populace. And the point I try to make is this: you can laugh about chemtrails. You can go, Nobody would ever do this, but those who forget the past are doomed to repeat it. And my running joke is, and I have to always add 5 years every time I say this because I don't want to die early. So now when I'm 155 years old and I'm on my deathbed, and I turn on the TV and they go, did you know that back in 2020, the U.S. government finally admitted that they were spraying all kinds of sulfur, aluminum, titanium, even diamond dust to reflect sunlight to cool the planet? It was an active geoengineering program all along, and you guys got played. And I'm going to be, literally in the bed and, having some nurse wiping my ass going, I knew them motherfuckers was doing it. I knew them. But the pragmatic part of me goes, all right, we can't prove any of that right now. What are we going to do about it today? So that's why you're seeing all of these states, taking action and trying to ban geoengineering and weather modification. I just don't know, at least in the case of Tennessee, it really wasn't effective. They did ban geoengineering, they banned weather modification, but the state's still covered in clouds. So I'm curious to see what's going to happen down in Florence, Florida. Know that if you do testify, we're probably going to be watching. It's one of the things that we like to do on the channel is, just tune into these things, especially if they're live, and kind of just go back and forth with the chat. I really like the new chat button. Thanks everybody in chat for hanging out. And please hit that like button, subscribe. Also go over and check out Mark, Florida Sky Watchers, on Facebook and Twitter. And for everybody else, you missed it. We were live and you weren't here. So you watch it on the repeat, go download it, paste it around the internet. I don't give a damn what you do with it, as long as you don't do anything naughty with it. And with that being said, remember everybody, information comes power. With power comes great responsibility. So please use that power and that information to attack ideas, not people. And by that, I mean, don't get violent.
If this video resonates with you, leave me a comment because I love hearing from y'all. First time here, be sure to subscribe and click the bell. Yeah! Remember, it would be impossible for me to do this without your support, so please join my Patreon or buy me a coffee on PayPal. And always, attack ideas, not people.